Hi, this is Eileen Nauman, and I'm a medical astrologer. And we're going to talk about the Uranian planets. There's 8 of them, and the one that I'm going to talk about and share with you today is Vulcanus. And we're going to go ahead and get started on this. And basically, the whoop, sorry about that. I'm not the world's best when it comes to this thing. But I want to start with Vulcanus, the symbol. It's a triangle with an arrow racing out of the point of it, upward. It definitely resembles a volcano, with the arrow being the explosion of the red hot lava. And I put lava in parentheses because it may not be the physical idea of lava. It can be somebody spewing out anger at you, for instance, or something like that, or you write it out, or you send a letter to the editor. There's different ways of volcanoes spewing out what they're feeling at that time. The symbol can also be seen as a mountain exploding or a fiery explosion of any kind or type. And this includes especially a person's drive, a person's passion. And I'm not necessarily talking about sexuality here, although that is part of Vulcanus, but more to the point, a person's passion, something that drives them, something that they love to do, or they want to know about, or they want to change something because they feel that it's not as good as it could be, or it's harming the environment. And you can go on and on with a person's passion. Also, on the other end from passion is rage. And you can also put into this mix, besides the rage, you can have, drive-by shootings. You can have, a single shooter who, kills people with an AR-15. And it also involves other emotions other than just anger. It can be joy, it can be happiness, it can be grief, it can be the entire slate of human spectrum of emotions. Vulcanus can be a part of it. Now, Alfred Witte, who discovered the Uranian planets during World War I, he was a German cook in the trenches, and he had a lot of time on his hands, I guess. And he devised these 8 Transneptune planets, because at that time in 1918, they only had the known 8 planets. They didn't know Pluto was out there. So that's why it's called a TNP. Just a little bit of history here. But Witte called this particular planet an act of God. And that person literally is in God's hands, or whoever you believe in. And that nothing else can be done for the person. They live or die with or without our help, human help or intervention. There is a higher intervention going on that we must respect and that we have no control over. Alfred Witte, as I explained before, when he was in the trenches, he had time on his hands. He discovered 8 different planets that didn't really take into consideration the known 7, 8 planets that they had already, plus the luminaries, the sun and the moon. So he ended up calling them different mythological names, particularly the Greek gods and goddesses. And if, for instance, like the Mars, everybody knows what Mars is if you're an astrologer. The higher octave of Mars is Vulcanus. So it's like times 10, whatever Mars was, Vulcanus is that much more. Plus, it rules over other things other than what Mars rules over. And that's what we're going to cover here today. And you'll see why we need to know about this planet. Even though we can't see it, understand that the known solar system that we have today, we can pick up a telescope and we can look at a planet, or we can look at the moon, or whatever. But the 8 Uranian planets are not in the third dimension. They are in the fourth dimension. Now, if you're clairvoyant, you can see them. But if you're not, you won't. And so a lot of people go, well, why should I believe in something that I can't see? All I can say is give them a try and see if it works out for you or not. And there will be people who listen to this video who are Vulcanus people. And the energy and the high frequency of their energy is such that it's pretty far above a lot of people struggling down here on this planet in a lifetime, in an incarnation. Our aura usually is about 8 hertz, and our aura is the energy field around each of us. This is what keeps us alive. And this is getting into metaphysics, but the understanding that I'm trying to connect with here is that Vulcanus and all the other planets, Uranian planets, are simply of such a much higher vibrational frequency that most people can't utilize what they have because our frequency, our vibration isn't that high itself. So there's no way, it's going to be like 2 ships passing in the night. But because we have the Aquarian age coming in, we have that particular vibrational frequency coming in. There are people, probably billion people or more on this planet who are at a point where they can get the upgrades to be able to use some of the energies and the rulerships that they have, that's going to enhance and help us in a very positive way, one hopes. Like any planet, whether you see it or not, it's like a ruler. At one end you have the dark end, and one end you have a white end. And you can kind of think of that as the dark end is a negative, the light end is a positive, and in the middle ground between those two is the gray area where 99% of us are at. So the whole idea of utilizing this energy, it is coming in, it's pouring in, and a lot of people are feeling very out of body, or they're feeling a lot of stress, and they're feeling a lot of wanting to get out of this chaos that is around everybody on this planet. It isn't just in the United States, it's in every country. People aren't sleeping well. People are so stressed out that they're sleep deprived, which is no good either. So we're really going through a rough time because the Piscean age is leaving and the Aquarian age is coming in, which is why the Uranian planets are so important, because they're bringing their energy in to help us. But not everybody is a good girl or a good guy. We have people in incarnation down here who are very dark people, who want control, want power, want greed, who are selfish, and they don't care about the other person. They don't care about the environment. They don't care that we have climate change. So you can also use that power with these coming in too. And it's a choice, it's a free will choice by the person who is incarnated into this lifetime at this time. So what I wanted to basically say is, what did Vita see so often with this planet Vulcanus? And I said he could have picked Mars instead, and I said no, because there was so much more to Vulcanus than Mars. Mars is like a toddler, while Vulcanus is the adult. He saw them as separate and individualized, and like I said before, Vulcanus is the higher octave of Mars. And if we can, it would be nice if all of us could aspire to connect directly with all of these Uranian planets in a good way. There's going to be some that are very bad, and they'll connect with them too. So what we're going through right now is a seesawing of light and dark, and it just is what it is. And we're just going to have to get through it, and we will. The best things that we can do is work together from our hearts, not our heads. Okay. I put down a couple of graphics here. I really like visuals because it brings home a person's understanding a little bit more clearly. I've never been a book reader in school, but I really like the visuals, so I have them throughout this particular video. But what we're going to do and explore in depth is that Vulcanus was born because of Vita. He saw beyond that and the naming of the planet. So let's see what else he saw. So let's go back to mythology. This is really, really important. And I'm going to also say that Vulcan was the Roman god of fire and of metalworking, and he protected smithies. These were the guys who would create a horseshoe to shoe a horse with, or a mule, or an oxen. But he was far more than that. He was a smithy that was unlike any other, and because he was a god, that made him even more special. He was a bearded man. He was a common worker carrying the utensils of a smith, which is a forge, for one thing, and a hammer. He was the offspring of Zeus, who was the king of gods, and of Hera, who was the queen of the gods for Greece. And when he was born, one of the myths about him is that he was so ugly that he was thrown out of Olympus, which was where all the gods resided on this mountain in Greece. And he hit the ocean, and he broke his one foot that never grew properly and became deformed. And the sea nymphs from the ocean rescued him and raised him. Eventually, Hera and Zeus claimed him as their son, even though he was ugly and now he was deformed. Vulcan created thunderbolts for Zeus to throw, and later for Athena, the goddess of wisdom, he allowed her to throw the thunderbolts also to hurl them at humans. He made armor for Achilles and Aeneas, who were great Greek warriors. He also created beautiful jewelry for the goddesses, including his own mother, Hera. And Vulcan was known for the fire of the volcanoes of Italy. And believe me, Italy's got some pretty good ones that are still going to this day. And even before Rome, the Etruscans worshipped him on August 23rd, which they called Vulcanalia Festival. Okay, so Vulcanus was the son of Hera and Zeus, and Hera used, now this is, to me, this is very interesting. Hera used magical herbs to have the next baby, birthing him, and what she saw when he was born, he had a lame leg, and that would be like a club foot or a crab foot in today's medical information. She was disgusted by his deformity, and so in this other version of the myth, she threw him from Mount Olympus, hoping he would die. He fell instead into the ocean and was raised by Thetis, who was the mother of Achilles and was one of the sea nymphs. Later, it was Dionysus, the god of wine, who brought him back to Olympus. Vulcan was known as the god of fire. As I said before, he was a smithy. He was a craftsman who worked in metal and stone. Later, he married Aphrodite, who was Venus. That didn't last long, so he divorced her. Then he married Charis, who was the goddess of grace, according to the mythologists. And by her, he had many children. He was called the volcano god, firing gas belching from the mountain, and he had a domain over fire. He was known for slaying the giants of the world, and symbolically, he was always seen as lame. And despite that, he did a lot. He was an incredible human being. Well, God, I guess, would be a better way to say it. But despite his infirmities, the man produced beautiful things and works of art, and also things that were used in wars. So symbolically, looking at Vulcanus as a planet, it has a number of adjectives and adverbs showing us the many sides when its vibrational energy influences the human being. One of them is lameness, And this is the person that may be deformed in some way, either physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, or some of the above or all of the above. The lameness seen by others and the person is judged by it or shunned by quote unquote healthy people, adding another layer of quote unquote shame to the person with such an issue. And medically, autism, mental illness, chronic illness is seen by humans as less than perfect. And in today's world, that works against this person as it did throughout time, as far as I know it. Another word for lame is crippled. And that might be a little bit, bring up a little bit more information on this. It brings in a view of our mental and emotional states of mind and being. A person who has come out of a dysfunctional family, for functional family home, the child's brain is actually changed to reflect the ongoing constant trauma for 18 years and is certainly crippled in some ways. It may not, the child may not be limping around, may have not been harmed physically, but the parent or parents or the people that he lives or she lives with is being traumatized, but it's hitting them either mentally and or emotionally. And I'm sure most of you know somebody who has had that type of a life. And so a person who lives through trauma or a terrifying event or events can become crippled. And one of the ones that we know about because of our soldiers being in Afghanistan is PTSD. That really cripples a person emotionally and mentally. And just because a person is crippled in some way doesn't mean that they are lacking in mental development, creativity, or in any other way. And a really good example of this is Stephen Hawking, the physicist. To me, he was Vulcanus in action. He didn't allow, just because his physical body was deformed, his mind certainly was not. He was a veritable genius in physics. So I always tell people that, if I see someone who is deformed physically, I don't look at them as being a bad person or somebody deserved it or whatever. Instead, I have great compassion for them. And, when you're crippled, you compensate. And that compensation is an important part of Vulcanus's psychological makeup from a mental and emotional standpoint. And we'll get into that more later. Okay, so let's get into the psychology of Vulcanus. They come in different various sizes and packaging, but underneath of it, it's cosmic power. And if the person is a well-balanced individual, whether man or woman, doesn't matter, they're going to be able to control and handle and focus the Vulcanus energy. If not, then we've got a bull in the china shop and nobody can stop that person. So let's go back to the first type. This goes for both men and women. They're powerful, they're athletic, they have well-muscled bodies, they have broad, deep chests and strong shoulders. And as a matter of fact, the strong shoulders, nobody can carry a load like a Vulcanus person can. They can be under tremendous stress and tremendous physical or emotional stress, and they can handle it when it would probably kill another person. This is that cosmic fire of Vulcanus that is always a part of it, and what separates Vulcanus people from the other 7 Uranian planets who do not have this. It's a specialty. To me, it's a gift. But if it's carried too far, you have burnout. So that's Vulcanus too. Anyway, these strong, well athletic muscled bodies, they are usually medium to large boned. They're usually medium height. Their face is usually plain, and they lack a patrician or a noble type of face or a handsome face. Most of them are very plain looking. They may be considered plain versus attractive. Some people would say of this type that they're built like a brick outhouse, a short neck, and they're literally look like a brick, physically speaking. They may be considered, sturdy looking. The women are chunky or medium to heavily boned, and there's nothing petite or delicate about their body. They may have no neck or a very short neck, such that the head appears to sit on the shoulders, and there's very little neck there between it and the head itself. Now, a person who has a deformity due to genetics, or the mother took a prescription drug during pregnancy, or something happened to her during pregnancy, a trauma to affect them, that is just part of this possibilities. The bodybuilders of both sexes are created through Vulcanus, and they are strong men and women, but they also can be strong emotionally and mentally or spiritually as well. So another type is it can be so physically crippled that they cannot be any of the above that I just talked about. And instead, the Vulcanus energy expression has moved to the mental and spiritual realm, where they exceed expectations in science or arts or any creativity. It doesn't mean that they're crippled in their mind. And as we've seen with Stephen Hawking, the quantum physicist, he was in a wheelchair all his life, but that didn't stop him from making tremendous breakthroughs in quantum physics. More importantly here, the Vulcanus energy, that internal drive, they are a cosmic piston in their engine of life in this incarnation, and it burns hot and visibly through them. A good example, like I said, was Stephen Hawking's, but there's certainly a lot of other people who have drive, who are very focused narrowly on something that is their passion, so to speak, that they love. They like getting up in the morning and doing it, and to them it's not work, it's play, and it makes them feel good. All right, so the Vulcanus, their internal and sometimes external drive outmatches Mars, and here we're seeing the difference between the lower planet versus the higher octave of Mars, which is Vulcanus. The drive outmatches Mars by 10,000 miles. In some Vulcanus types, this drive is obvious, as in they speak very quickly, they have fast speech, or they're a fast talker. They can be a fast walker. They are always interrupting the other person and showing their impatience in every part of their life and lifestyle. Now, the drive of Vulcanus can never be understated or ignored. The term busy bee is coined here. It reminds me of one of my favorite sayings, lead me, follow me, or get the hell out of my way. That is Vulcanus, just that one sentence. And believe me, a Vulcanus person means it. At an extreme, on the more darker side, they can be arrogant, thinking that they are better, physically stronger, that they're mental giants than anyone else. And they're the type that when they get into a verbal sparring match with somebody, they'll tell that other person, I can out-talk you, outwork you, outsmart you. And they're also found in fast sports like Formula One racing or track, or different Olympic sports that require a lot of physical and brute strength. They're found also on debate teams, and they also can be loud, obnoxious politicians, among others. I'm sure by now by talking just about this much about Vulcanus, I'll bet you all have somebody in mind who is like this. There's a lot of them around, but that's just, it's when you meet one, you know them. It's very obvious. So they have a fond love of exercise, working out, going to the gym. In the extreme, they may be marathon runners, power lifters, bodybuilding, and they will have a lot of championships as a result. They love sports of any kind, and this includes the women too, by the way. And they are avid television watchers of any type of thing like bodybuilding or sports or the Olympics and that type of thing. They shape their world much like a smithy would shape a horseshoe on his or her forge, is a good example of this. They challenge themselves by putting demanding situations to test their endurance, their intelligence, and their strength. The quote unquote need for speed is another one of their mottos. Fast brain, fast intellect, fast mouth. As a nonstop talker, an interrupter, and a fast-moving body, or hands and arms flying around like an Italian man that's excited, okay? That is Vulcanus. Now, interestingly, Vulcanus is a very masculine energy for men. Even the women are considered tomboy-like. And they have an accentuated male energy side that's well established. Vulcanus women will be found in male vocations such as construction, mechanics, the military, welding, working with metals, firefighting, a metallurgy engineer, combat pilot in the military, etc. She is capable of, quote unquote, besting the boys at their own job. And she may have suppressed her feminine energy, and it may start to integrate into her around age 42 to 45. So there's a powerful inner drive to Vulcanus, and they are also highly competitive. The ones that are on the side of light or heading toward the light are competitive with themselves. They're not competitive with anybody else outside of them, but they challenge themselves to become better at something, which I think is very healthy. I think that's a great thing to have. And then you won't see this in your face with this one type as a result. But the competitive Vulcanus, who is selfish and self-centered and more on the dark end of Vulcanus, is going to be competitive with everybody. And it can be something that's very small and inconsequential to something that they feel is really, really important, and they're going to win. They're going to best everybody. And this can get out of hand really, really quickly, especially with Vulcanus children. They're going to grab everybody else's toy. It isn't just one toy from one kid. They're going to get them all because they deserve it. And it's that kind of a mindset that I'm competitive and I'm in charge and they're all mine and you can't have them back. So there's those two types of children. Now, other Vulcanus types are quiet, unobtrusive, patient, and hardworking. They are not arrogant. They're very humble. They just go about their business to get it done. And this is an important thing about Vulcanus people. They want it done right. They do not cut corners. They do not cheat. They don't take something and not make it to the very best that it can be. And believe me, we used to own an Arabian horse farm, so we were always having the smithy come out to trade off horseshoes on our horses. And if you watch a smithy with a horseshoe and the forge and beating it with that hammer and constantly checking it against the horse's hoof to make sure that it's exactly the correct shape for that horse, they don't leave anything undone or half-assed, if you will. Their pride is in how good they are at what they do. And they know it, and they don't need anybody else to tell them about it. So they also don't seek the limelight. They definitely walk their talk. They let their abilities speak for them. The other type is in your face, bragging about their super capabilities and how many skill sets they've got. They are egotistical, and in some male cases, they're mentally unbalanced about it. And because it is already an egotistical male patriarchal society in this world, and much of just about everywhere else, Vulcanus women will not be as brash as the male will be, but they don't take any guff off anybody either. All right, so they are powerful people. They revel in their powerful physique, in their powerful abilities, what or whomever they are, and they enjoy using their power, although in a negative, they can abuse it and abuse themselves and others with it. And in this case, they go off what I call half-cocked. And they are like a rocket that has been fired, but the rocket's going up in the wrong direction. And if they spiral downward, they do a lot of damage to themselves and to others. And if on an upward spiral, they can literally lift the people or this planet's energy with a laser-like focus and endurance. So you have the dark end of Vulcanus, but you also have the light end. Now, power in any form or format is an aphrodisiac to a Vulcanus person. They also enjoy sex, and most of them have a powerful libido, whether it's man or woman. And despite being plain and not attractive or particularly handsome, they radiate sexual charisma. Believe me, they do. Bodybuilding is an aphrodisiac of another sort for them, and they enjoy feeling their body work and transform. They're good at power games for good or worse. They are like tanks that roll over the opposition. They can be crude, homespun, a down-home type of characteristics, and rather basic in their outlook and demeanor toward others. Even after they are quote unquote polished by maturity and adulthood, this person is plain spoken, blunt, and not given to much diplomacy. In other words, what you see is what you get. And I purposely put down the graphic of the tank because, of all of the 8 Uranian planets, the tank in them is Vulcanus, and you never want to forget that. So Vulcanus people run small businesses that are practical and common sensed. An example would be like a tire store business or a grocery store, an auto shop, a car dealership, a latte shop, a manufacturing company that is usually focused on mechanical parts. They may have a welding shop. They may run a gas station. Women, on the other hand, a lot of them are self-sufficient, and they believe in who and what they are and what they can do, which is in their mindset. They can do a lot more than most other women in this case. And they usually have a cottage industry business, and it may even be from their home, or they may have a storefront or perhaps a website. But they put a lot of energy and care and thoroughness and thoughtfulness into it too. They want a really good product that shines like they feel about themselves. Or the woman may start their own business too, and I'm talking about a real business, not a cottage industry. They have them, and the thing is that if the woman is a balanced Vulcanus, they will have people who are very loyal to them because Vulcanus is loyal to them also. And a lot of Vulcanus people who are in different businesses, they don't own it, but they work for a shop. They'll never leave it until they're retired. If the environment is correct for them, They will. They'll be your hardest worker. They will be the one producing the best. They'll be the ones who don't make a lot of the mistakes that other people will, because they're either distracted or they're not totally focused on what they're making or doing. So a Vulcanus worker is worth their weight in gold as far as I'm concerned. They're a passionate individual who puts her or his heart in everything they do. Their titanium drive, and believe me, it is titanium, will be coupled with their passion and emotion. Everything is combined in them when it comes to their drive. It's mind, it's heart, and if it demands a physical presence, then it's their body also. And they're capable of the heavy lifting in our world, whether it's spiritual, mental, emotional, or physical. I call them the cosmic bulldozer in action and focus. There are Vulcanus people who are world changers. They can have a world vision and focus like a laser on it. And a lot of activists are often Vulcanus people. So they're always action oriented. They are not fence sitters. They're not diplomats. They're always hands on. And they're the type that would say, let's get the job done kind of attitude toward life. Again, that inner drive. They become a bull in a china shop when on a roll. And if they're more toward the white end, they're not destroying anything, but they're building things. If they're on the dark end, then they're going to destroy the things around them. They have a lot of strength of character. They'll tell you that they know what they know, and they don't suffer fools at all. They don't do social patter or chatter. They disdain social conventions. They much prefer a rural life instead. So farmers, gardeners, and being close to the earth careers, perhaps it's into mechanics or garage mechanic to a quantum physicist scientist. There's no limit to what a Vulcanist can do once they've set their drive and their passion and their focus on it. A natural disaster of epic proportions is the volcano explosion in Iceland that stops air traffic to and from Europe for, I think it was 5 days. Also the Gulf oil disaster with the platform explosion in the Gulf and subsequent release of oil a mile down into the Gulf's area of fragile ecosystem are all symbols of what Vulcanus is. And in its highest form, it is what we call force majeure, which is cosmic intervention. And this is being at the right or wrong place at the right or wrong time. And they're also the people, the man or the woman or the group of people, if somebody's in a car accident somewhere and they can't get out and there's a fire, it's the Vulcanus people who run and literally will push the car over so they get the person out. That is their ability and the sheer force of will and personality to help someone. They also are a leader for people who see their boss or the person who owns that business, and they'll often call them a force of nature. Now, when a Vulcanus person loses it, they become like an unraveling volcano spewing lava in every direction. Only the lava is words, of course. In an unhealthy direction, think of those who use guns to kill innocent people. When pushed beyond their own patient limits, they can become highly destructive, out of control, and nothing but an act of God is going to stop them. Psychologically, this individual may be emotionally or mentally or spiritually deformed or crippled, and this simmers like a volcano within them until they act it out in our 3D world, much like the shooters who murder people for some perceived hurt. They don't even have to know them. They'll just ride along on a motorcycle and shoot them as they walk on the sidewalk. That's a Vulcanus that's out of control, completely. So symbolically, the dark side of Vulcanus is the person who is like a volcano that may sit quietly and gathers a lot of lava type anger and building rage deep within them for decades sometimes before they explode. And these people are exactly like that. On the outside, there's no hint of their power or abilities. It's all hidden within them. And if they get bullied by others, then that's when they will explode. That's when they will take steps that are not positive for anybody. Now, on a healthy side, they can once engaged within themselves, and they know who and what they are and what they can and can't do. They can become world changers, and that is such a positive. We need a lot of world changers right now. On an unhealthy side, they can destroy on a world level too. You know, Putin could pull the trigger on a nuclear war because he's losing Ukraine and everybody's joining NATO, which is the time that I'm making this video, is the possibility. And they like to get even when they're perceived hurt, and they take it out and they bite back. Symbolically, and I would say spiritually also, those of you who are into yoga, you're very well versed in knowing what the Kundalini is. And the Kundalini is activated down in your tailbone, and it is exactly like a volcano shooting up through our chakras and our spinal column. Now, whether it coils the snake correctly or not is another question based upon the individual to whom it is happening. But Vulcanus people, and I would also say Vulcanus trances and Vulcanus progressions in the 90-degree dial chart, solar progressions, may have a Kundalini episode or two. And if you don't know about Kundalini, it's basically, if you have a friend who practices yoga, you might ask him about that. I can't get into it too much, but suffice to say that every human being has this possibility of this energy rising up through us, coming out the top of our head, and then connecting with God or goddess or whoever you believe in. And you get surrounded with this incredible love and care and nurturance. And it's the most beautiful feeling in the world. And it's very healing, which is why so many people who are in yoga pursue this. They like to have it happen to them too. Okay, an epidemic that influences a wide area, such as an entire region, country, or the world, is under Vulcanus's direction. It can also play as a secondary trigger point on a major global epidemic like the one we just had, and nothing can stop it. And Vulcanus fire, in this case, is a high fever, and that can kill. So you sometimes will find Vulcanus very deeply involved in epidemics. Now, Vulcanus people, on a lighter side here, do not do well in tropical or humid or rainy climates. They prefer dry regions with less humidity or low humidity. And the desert areas of the Southwest US is perfect for a Vulcanus type. There's a loss of energy from them because the weather is cold and or wet for long periods of time. And Vulcanus people can become depressed if there's not enough sunshine and or outdoor activity so that they can get outside and do their exercising. Now, illness that occurs because they are in a closed, stuffy room or office with no true, what I call outside air. And in buildings, air is continually recirculated, and this causes health ailments, especially for Vulcanus people. Mold is like kryptonite to them. Fresh air is a must and a healer. And get fresh air, go for walks in the park or take a hike. Also, going back to yoga, they have some great breathing techniques that truly help a Vulcanus person. So if you are like that and you don't do anything in yoga yet, why don't you go check it out if it feels right to you? It'll clear your head. Okay, so again, besides the yoga, you can also take a walk in the park or take a walk around your neighborhood or go out and do a hike and be outdoors. Nature is very healing to you. Now, seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, okay, is when there's not enough sunshine and not enough light. And there's a big group of people out there who get very depressed in the wintertime especially. And if you can't get outside and you can't ski and do things like that because you're older or you're just not into it, you may need the special light to give you the sunshine indoors, and that helps alleviate the depression. Also, heat exhaustion, which means you're out in the sun for too long and you don't realize it because they lose themselves in nature. They're not drinking enough water, and that is heat exhaustion. They forget to drink enough. And on the worst end of this, Vulcanus people can have a very deadly sunstroke or a heat stroke, but it's the sunstroke that can kill you. And that's when the body's thermostat goes haywire within your brain and you stop sweating, your skin's dry, but your temperature, because you're not sweating because of the brain and thermostat inside of it isn't working properly, can become a very deadly ailment because your temperature can shoot up to 104, 105, 106, and it'll kill you. So these are all Vulcanus types of things that can happen to them. Also, what I find interesting is that a lot of Vulcanus people that I know are what we call thirstless. They don't drink enough water throughout the day. And that leads to, an electrolyte imbalance. It's also a kidney issue because they don't drink enough water. And they also could perspire heavily and lose too much fluid via their skin pores. And they must replace it with enough liquid, preferably water, not Coke, not, these sugar drinks, but something that's good for your body. So that you don't fall into this type of situation. All right, you really don't want to ever bully a Vulcanus. And remember, there's several types of Vulcanus. There is the quiet one, and usually it's the quiet kids that get bullied. And Vulcanus likes to be left alone. They don't like crowds. So they're pretty much in the loner category. So when bullied, the Vulcanus person may internalize this hurt, the rage they feel because they're being picked on, and they will have a keen desire to injure the other party. And it can sit simmering in them for a long, long time. It can be years or a decade. And when the bullied person finally explodes, who is a Vulcanus, it's often violent and ends with severe injury or death of others and sometimes themselves. And this is where gun massacres occur. So bullying is a big deal. And the other type of Vulcanus, if somebody tried to bully them, they punch their lights out and, and that would never happen again. And they'd leave that type of Vulcanus alone. But it's the quiet one who is the bully. So, or gets bullied rather. All right, the ability to carry hurt and rage for decades before exploding is common with a Vulcanus person. And this can deflect upon themselves in a chronic injury or a disease or harm against innocent bystanders. You can't carry rage. It has to be gotten out some way that's positive rather than hurting others or hurting yourself. Okay, so another Vulcanus type are terrorists, whether they're domestic terrorists or global, doesn't matter. These people have a powerful Vulcanus in their astrology chart. And this is the juggernaut of how they think. They'll say, I'm right. And they are out to prove it at any cost, and any amount of lives could be lost in the same moment, because they take it out on others. They never take it out on themselves. They're not a suicidal group per se. So the volcanic energy is distorted in religion, in racism, white nationalist views, and it's all loose and running around today in our country and around the world. This type of Vulcanus person believes in total destruction is the only way to change the situation. And they're so focused on it, and they're so passionate about it. And that drive is all fixated on that one thing: destroy the enemy so that, when everybody's gone, then we can make the world right. So they have a fixed mental attitude, and they're fanatics. I'm right and you're wrong. They'll kill you for it. So energy-wise, if this person is into metaphysics or a mystic, they can be powerful hands-on healers. That's on the light side. On the dark side, there's the sorcerer who can do damage. So this power that they have, they came in with it, is at its fullest when they are learning how to use it on every level, which is a spiritual level. And they may very possibly live the everyday life of a mystic. And one of the other types of Vulcanus, think of The Sorcerer's Apprentice by Walt Disney. It's a short film that I'm sure you can probably get on the internet now, but watch it and see what happens, because this is the Vulcanus who is the bull in the china shop. But the person who is spiritually focused and who is mature as a Vulcanus person, they are going to have potential Kundalini experiences. And that volcanic energy that is flowing through them is one of two things. It's either about the use of power or the abuse of power. And when it is about the use from the heart of the person, these people are powerful healers, and they're the type of person, they can come into a room and they light it up, 1,000-fold, just because their energy is there, that drive is there. And they can say something to you that can be very healing, that can open a door or catalyze you. So there's this side also to the Vulcanus energy. All right, medical issues. This is a lot of fun. This is swift, acute onset of a fever, such as measles, flu, or other childhood diseases. And that swift onset can include inflammation. So heat and fever and swelling come on quickly. High fever, sepsis, which is blood poisoning. And believe me, blood poisoning moves very, very fast. If you get a lethal sepsis, bacterial infection, you can be dead in 48 hours afterwards. So if you have a sudden high fever, get to the ER, don't wait around. And also Vulcanus people get spikes of fever. It'll go way high and then it'll drop down, then it'll go high again. And, this is where misdiagnosis also occurs. They get cluster headaches. They get sudden debilitating migraines, and they get a fever that comes and goes for no reason at all. They can get high fever, and any of that you probably saw in your childhood if you're an adult now and a Vulcanus person. Energy through an explosion of any kind. It can be a fiery auto wreck. It could be a plane that's, fallen out of the sky. It could have tripped on a route that you didn't see and it fall flat on your face. Also, volcanic people tend to be caught in domestic terrorist activity where one is injured in an explosion or by gunfire by a mass shooter. And this is why, because of the tenor of the times, and we've got hundreds of people being murdered every year here in the US. If you're a volcanist person, I would not be in any large gathering anywhere because it's just not a good place to be for you. So think about that before you go to an outdoor music festival or something like that. Also, gas explosions, whether it's propane or natural gas, tends to be a volcanous issue. Mine gas explosions, which is methane gas, is another one that they deal with. Also, swift proliferation of cell multiplication, a fast-moving cancer that spreads quickly through the lymph gland system or through an organ, are all volcanous things that you want to be aware of. Now, this, I don't want to scare anybody with this, but if, for instance, like if you have cancer in your family, then you should, especially, it's in a family DNA and you're a volcanist person, you should be watching this very carefully and be up on what are the signs and symptoms of cancer anywhere in your body, and then get to a doctor and find out. Don't wait on this. Also, anything that is violent or there's a swift reaction is based upon the conjunction in the midpoint structure with other planets in the 90-degree dial, which I can't get into today, but it's something that Uranian astrologers use for solar arc progression. Most of all, whatever the sickness, Vulcanus's energy amplifies the expression of the symptoms that the person gets. So that's one kind of fire. Vulcanus has several types of fire. There is the fire of fever. There is the fire where you can burn yourself and, first, second, third degree burns, that type of thing. But then there's another one called cosmic fire. And the cosmic fire is directly related to the Kundalini experiences, which may or may not entail health problems on a spiritual, mental, emotional, or physical realm. Usually the cosmic fire that I'm talking about here is the one we've just discussed, where the energy sits at the tailbone and then comes up through the spine and up through the head and then connects with God, goddess, whoever you believe in. And on another level, especially with Vulcanus, you get what we call the act of God. And this is where they are a victim of something much larger than themselves and they cannot control or stop it from happening. This is what we call cosmic intervention. And Vulcanus, if you see Vulcanus in your solar arc chart, and it's very active in it, then you need to be more awake or alert when you're driving a car and things like this, and not being distracted. So Vulcanus has a powerful constitution of vital force. Even if they get very sick and they are at death's door, quite literally, they snap back from it and survive things that would ordinarily kill a normal human being. Vulcanus people are not ordinary human beings. They have this extra superwoman, Superman power that is behind them at all times. So they have tremendous recuperative powers. They don't get sick often, but when they do, they get really sick. But once it's over, they just bounce back really fast. Again, that volcanic energy coming in to support them, and they get over it really quickly. They're able to heal up in less time than, quote unquote, a normal person. Okay, if Vulcanus is injured or caught in a volcanic eruption, travel disruption due to a volcanic activity where ash in the air stops planes from flying through the clouds of volcanic debris, which can bring it down really fast. This is one issue that Vulcanus may have to deal with. Another is being injured or caught in an earthquake, usually 6.5 or stronger. Also, they may be in an area where there is a major natural disaster, like a hurricane, a tornado, a tidal wave, an earthquake, eruption, a wildfire, or they're caught in a man-made disaster, such as an oil or chemical disaster, which is really something to worry about in the Gulf region of Louisiana and Texas of the USA for the people that live there. Also, because Vulcanus loves sports, there's also the possibility of injury proneness through the sport as well. And because Vulcanus is always pushing their body to do it better, faster, quicker than anybody else, they're also prone to muscle-related injuries as well. And they can also include ligaments and tendons of the body. And that may cause deformity as a result. So overdoing exercise is not advised here. Do your normal amount, but don't try and break records. You don't need to do that. Your physical body is weaker than your passionate drive to do what you want to do. So you have to take care of your physical body. Not knowing when to stop pushing their physical body, taking advantage of their physical strength and endurance, they will eventually break. You can break a bone, you can tear a ligament or tendon. That's going to keep you out for 6 months for sure. And I always say about Vulcanus people that they break, they don't bend. Don't be one of them. Okay, when a Vulcanus person reaches middle age, they still think they are 20-somethings, and they try and push their aging body beyond what it can take or do. And consequently, a lot of injuries occur at this time, particularly to the muscles of the back, the buttocks, and the thighs. Sciatica with burning inflammation and nerve pain is a biggie with them. And if you've ever had this, you never want it again. Nerve inflammation that is hot and burning is also part and parcel of Vulcanus. Also shingles, all right. That's another one that just would drive a Vulcanus person crazy. Skin diseases of hot, inflamed natures such as herpes, psoriasis, eczema, and dermatitis that is red looking, hot feeling, and itchy. The skin cracks open. All of those are part of the Vulcanus personality. So you want to take care of yourself instead. Migraine headaches that are hot, throbbing, and terribly painful happen to a Vulcanus person, but they also have a high pain tolerance. One of the top ones for that. They also are prone to high blood pressure or spikes of high blood pressure, which is usually a sign of atrial fibrillation. And you really need to get to the doctor on that one. They're prone to herpes outbreaks, measles outbreaks, or any skin eruption. When they're younger, they, especially the boys, and a little less so the girls, when they're in their teens, they get severe acne outbreaks. It's nothing to sneeze about, and it's awful. So just be aware of that. And if they're born with a deformity, it may be due to genetic DNA or because the mother was on a prescription drug, excuse me. Back in the 1950s, you had thalidomide babies. The mother was given that, and half of them died in months after being born. The rest were missing a limb or some other genetic issue. And then you get kids who have cleft palates and strokes due to high blood pressure. Now, this is for the tools for healing that help Vulcanus. Physical therapy is a great one for them because they're competitive with themselves to get better, faster, quicker. And so they're really going to lean into doing the exercises or whatever is being asked of them to heal. And not everyone loves doing these exercises, but Vulcanus does, and it's their bread and butter. They tend to overdo it, of course, but it does relieve a lot of steam from them, and that is good too. They need to see, if they get an injury, they need to see a doctor for muscle, ligament, or tendon injury. Also, don't forget that chiropractors may be very helpful in spinal conditions and should be thought of. Doctors of osteopathy, which is your bone doctors, massage, deep tissue massage, hydrotherapy, which is very warm water. It's not cold water, it's warm water, are all very conducive to them being healed. Physical exercise is an outlet for any repression or suppression, provided they aren't already physically injured. Try and not overdo the physicalness. They're always the ones. I mean, I had a client that had a hip replacement, and she was a Vulcanus type, and that's the worst possible thing, is to take her legs away from her, because Vulcanus people are so athletically inclined, and they feel better when they can move. And so she had a really, really tough time because of a hip replacement. Things don't go fast, and they go very slowly. And so she was always trying, if they tell you, don't try and climb any stairs the first 2 or 3 weeks after the surgery. Well, she's there probably 1.5 weeks into it, trying to climb stairs, trying to get better faster. Don't do that, Vulcanus. Please, just take your time for once. Another good thing for a Vulcanus person whose health is hurting is fresh air and sunshine. They hate being closed up in a hospital. They hate convalescents of any kind. I mean, they are the worst patients in the world, and they will drive you nuts. They will complain that the room's too stuffy, so they start opening windows, even if it's in the middle of winter, because they need that fresh air. They need circulating air. They like fans, and that distresses them. So you have to think about these things for these people in order to help them. Instead of climbing up the stress ladder, you want them to get off the ladder. Heat, as in a whirlpool treatment, warm packs with a cloth, a heating pad, is all really good. It provides the injury, the use of heat and cold combination. There's also sunshine and being out in a warm, dry, desert-like climate. These are all make the Vulcanus person smile, and they're happy, and they get better faster because of it. So another thing is a lot of green living plants indoor to remind Vulcanus how much they love the outdoors. Lots of windows in the home because they need the light. They need the sunlight. They do not like dark places and dark corners at all. They get very depressed very quickly. As I said before, yoga might be a really good thing for them because it creates deep breathing techniques which help their health. Drinking enough water daily to maintain their fluid levels and their electrolytes. This is a big one for Vulcanus. They just tend to be non-fluid drinkers, and you're always on them to, have you drank your 8 ounces of water yet? Acupuncture, acupressure, shiatsu, or foot reflexology really, really help a Vulcanus person greatly. Cranial sacral adjustments to the skull bones is wonderful for them. It really helps bring down their drive and getting it into a more quiet, constant movement rather than just doing this all the time, always pushing the limits. Set that Vulcanus drive. All right, magnetism. Now that is a term that people who use their hands to heal call it. Touch is a primary way for Vulcanus to heal up faster, quicker, better, and in a shorter amount of time. And with them, never underestimate the value of touch with a Vulcanus. And it doesn't have to be deep massage either. You can do it very lightly, and it's still very calming to the Vulcanus person, and they really relax. So hands-on for Vulcanus people really, really inspire them and de-stress them. Now, the other thing that they could do is what I call being sensitive to magnetism. And for example, if you say, I want a crystal healer to help me with my torn muscles, and I want the muscles to heal up faster. Well, okay, crystals have piezoelectric energy in them. Now, this is a fact. This is a science fact. Also, black tourmaline has pyroelectric, which is heat, and piezoelectric, which is electrical energy in them. And they are both great stones to use in healing for somebody who does hands-on healing. Or you could just hold it in your hands when you're in your yoga position. And also massage with some of the gemstones in particular. They're very smooth, and they're usually round or oval, and the healer or the masseuse will put them in their hands and gently move them up and down the spine on either side. Vulcanus really responds to that in a very, very positive way. So Vulcanus is symbolized by the element fire. Zeus is another fire element as well. Now, Zeus is another of the Uranian planets. But water separates these two planets. For Vulcanus, there's a deep need of water because it reaches to the unconscious parts of their personality. And it may be swimming, or just dangling your feet into a stream, or anything that will help you remember to drink more water. So this deep need of water reaches into the unconscious part of this person's personality. And water is emotions. And Vulcanus has deep, deep emotions, just like a volcano does. And so it's important that they get their emotions up to the surface and give them either words spoken or in some way physical exercise, that type of thing, to help them burn it off. And the other thing, earth is the element, is also equally important to the Vulcanus person. Both are grounding to the person more than any other element. And Vulcanus always has plants in their home. If you walk in and you see plants around, then you know that this is a person that would be rather outdoors, and if they can't, they're gonna, by gosh, bring it indoors. And for Zeus, the other one, they're not into earth and they're not into plants. So this is Vulcanus's area of what helps them. So I want to finish this talk by giving Greg Nell, who is my partner in crime here. I'm a good storyteller, but I'm not a grammar queen, and I want to give a heartfelt thank you to Greg, who is a dear friend, who picked up the mantle of editor and copy editor to make this PowerPoint on Vulcanus shine. And I'm fortunate to have him in my life, and his amazing talents make this presentation a lot of fun, entertaining, and educational.